So you're going to hear very different views about a few things tonight. Because they've all got very different backgrounds, different experiences. And here we go. Just before we start, I was just going to run through a few ways that we've already tried to initiate contact as a human race. So we've sent out the Voyager Golden Record, which was launched in 1977. That's the case there. And the golden record that was inside it had all sorts of information. I don't know how you feel about us sending information out to the cosmos about us without anyone asking our permission, if it was the right thing to do. Right, Lee?
Absolutely. I wasn't consulted.
No. We've sent out the Pioneer plaques in 1972 and 73. You're all familiar with that image. I don't know if we need to reveal everything, but there you go. And of course we had the WOW signal, which happened in August 1977. We were, it's an example of trying to make contact with extraterrestrials, with what SETI was doing and all that. So I'll just go back to that. I'm going to go on to that later. So panellists, there's two. Oh, you've got them. Okay, great. So, first of all, why don't you just introduce your UFO backgrounds just briefly and your experiences with sightings and or anything really.
Good evening, everyone. Is that working? Hello, hello.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay. My name's Tina. For those of you that don't know me, I've been interested and involved in UFO research since about 1977, where I came along to one of my first UFO meetings with Cheryl was there and a few other people that are still here tonight, Colin. So got interested in UFOs back then. And throughout those years then, I was one of those guys at the end of the meeting that stacked chairs, and I became chairman for about 9 years. So that'd be a lesson. If they tell you to move chairs, they're just sussing you out. But my interest has been with UFOs and also all things paranormal. Had a radio station show on 4BC for 17 years called The Paranormal Panel, and that went along wonderfully until they invited an Australian skeptic as part of the panel, and then we exchanged I learned a lot of new words. So I've sort of covered a very wide range of phenomena in my time, and also had very personal experiences of my own with the, I would say, using the old terminology of ghosts, things like that. So and I didn't realise until how many experiences I've had until Barry and Cheryl got me over their place one night to do a bit of a story to put it on film on YouTube, isn't it, or somewhere? And I didn't realise, I said, is that me? Really? All that stuff happened to me? You don't realise it? But so that's a bit of my background anyway.
And you've been past president of UFO Research Queensland.
Sorry?
You've been past president of UFO Research.
Yes, for 9 or so years and everything else. And but in real life, I paint houses as a disguise, so people don't know what I really do. They never work it out when they see me up there on the scaffolding. They say, no, that bloke, Anyway, thanks. Okay, Barry?
Yep.
I didn't know you used scaffolding, I thought you used it.
Yeah, but I can't use that, people will see it.
So just briefly, as an introduction, everyone.
My name's Barry Taylor.
That's all right.
I saw my first UFO as age 10-year-old. Had a close encounter in Sydney and saw a UFO football shape only metres away from me. That's when I got involved in the Sydney group down there. And I've probably seen UFOs most of my life, but in the 1990s when I was living in Grafton, New South Wales, I saw some amazing stuff, and I can tell you some great stories about that period of time. And moving up here to Queensland, and it's been great too. I've really enjoyed my time here at UFO and meeting all your people, but let's keep it going,
With the new technology we have, Claire's got one, you have to hold those mics up really close to your mouth, almost eat them, they said.
Okay, hello, my name is Claire.
Closer. I don't know why.
Yes, I'm not used to having to hold mics so close.
Yeah.
And yes, I saw my first UFO at age 2. That's my first conscious recollection of one, and kind of had sightings on and off for more than 20 years. They sort of tailed off in my 30s and 40s. Haven't seen much lately, but yes, I've had some really interesting sightings over the years, and been investigating them in a serious way for, well, more than 40 years now.
I'm independent.
Yeah.
Where do you
Oh,
begin?
yes, I'm an astronomer.
Just very, very briefly as an introduction, Colin.
Can you hear?
Just,
That's enough.
you have to put it up really close.
I don't remember when I wasn't interested in UFOs, because my father started on it when I was about 8 years of age, and I'm now 81. So I've been in it a long time. I've never claimed to have seen the UFO, but my God, I've met a lot of interesting people who have. And particularly in the early days of this organisation, we were connected with ships that see all sorts of things. We won't go there tonight. But anyway, I haven't seen a UFO, and you know what? It would be nice to, but it's no longer my ambition. I don't need to see a UFO to believe that they're any more than I believe to see that I've got to see Antarctica to know that it's there. So anyway, that's me in a nutshell.
So, panellists, thank you. You and Tino share that one, and they can share that one, yeah. So, panellists, tonight we're talking about close encounters of the fifth kind, which is human-initiated contact. And the first question I just want to start off with, and we'll get on to a few other things, but is, should we really be trying to make contact with extraterrestrials? Just a small question to start.
Have you been watching the movies? As far-fetched as they might seem, we don't really know too much about what's outside our solar system to be maybe arrogant enough to say, oh look, we're here, come and be friendly with us. How many countries, you look at how many countries, the natives of those countries have done that, and see what happened. So, you know, and also I believe too that we've got to be very careful when we talk about them, the aliens, the other species, that there could be thousands of them, different species, not one. So we might be only visited by 0.1% of them. So we don't know what's out there. There are those that are not as advanced as some of the ones that get here, who are just hungry to get it on to our resources or something. So I think, yes, we need to be very careful. But, as Captain Kirk once said, if you don't take these risks, we will be stagnant and stay in one place all the time. So we have to weigh up whether it's worth the risk and broaden our horizons, or stay safe in our own little houses, close the windows, close the doors, no baddies can come and get us. But what sort of life would that be?
I'll just add something to that. Looking at it from a slightly different perspective, I think that civilizations that are coming to visit us, I don't believe they're here for our resources. I don't actually believe that they're all that interested in our DNA or anything. I think any civilization that's capable of interstellar travel has already kind of answered a lot of those questions for themselves, because they're a lot more advanced than we are. So I don't think we should put our mindset on, onto them. I think that they would have to be reasonably well-intentioned, otherwise we would really know about it by now, if it were otherwise.
I agree with that. If we were at the beach surfing and got into trouble and the lifesavers came to rescue us, we put up our hand and the lifesavers come. Well, that's what's happened. Planet Earth has put his hand up, and we need rescuing. We need rescuing, and it all started, as far as I'm concerned, with the commencement of the nuclear age. That's why they're here. There's never been any doubt in my mind that that's what it's all about. And whenever you see UFOs monitoring a site, the chances are there's some radioactivity there, or they're just monitoring everything that's happened. And any contactees, almost without exception, have always said atom smashing is against the law of the universe, and if we continue with it, there's no future for us, and it's looking grim at the moment.
My take on that would be that if you look at history, let's say the Mayans, all the lot, a lot of the indigenous tribes around the world speak about the skies people, taught them agriculture, science, and came down and settled them into a life on this planet where they could survive. I think alien intervention in humans on this planet at the very beginning, probably, and they've been coming a long time, and I think that we can look at that indigenous their stories and the evidence they show, some of the old structures there that are just way beyond our mathematics and what we can do today. You look at the Mayan stuff that they're digging out now. They've got evidence of mercury and mica, which is used for probably for propulsion in their craft, because I came across it mentioned in another unassociated document as far as ancient sites with possible UFO propulsion with mercury and mica, and there's the drawings, it just goes on and on and on. There's evidence all over the place in these ancient structures of alien life visiting, and I don't think they've destroyed us unless they nuked the guys that ran the pyramids. I think that was nuked with an atomic weapon at some stage. There's evidence of that. In India, they show evidence of nuclear weapons being exploded there. But what actually caused that, I don't know. But yeah, hopefully that's it's. Our history can tell us a lot if we just study it in a wide, broad band. I think they can help us, but there's, as Tino said, there's lots of different species out there.
Just following what Colin said, how would you explain UFOs that came out in the 1500s? There were no nuclear weapons here. They still visit us from the beginning of time. I don't think they're here because someone let off a bomb. I think they've always been here.
Oh yeah.
And I think that their interest would be if they have some kind of genetic input into our species, then they're following it up. Because we're making the mistake of trying to think that they think the way we think. Their short-term plans could take 1,000 years. They might have plans for us, and it could be 5,000, 10,000 years down the track. For us, that's unbelievable. 2-3 days and do us. But again, we need to not think like humans. And I'll bet you anything you want that whatever species is flying around with these crafts probably went through the nuclear stage themselves. They went through the wars. They went through poverty. They went through hunger. They went through everything, right? And I always say that I'm quite happy to be on this planet today because this is the best time to live on this planet, right? Not the medieval times. I don't think you'd like to be around then. Yeah. Not World War I, probably not. I think this is the best time to be here. But we're also evolving. We are going through this period of maybe pollution because that's our evolution. We are exactly where we are, where we should be at this time of our evolution. We will move on, but that takes time, it takes work. But I don't think we should be always, for 50 years we're doing something bad and we want them to help. Well, 50, 100 years, they've done nothing. Nothing's happened. How many aliens have landed and said, stop using nuclear weapon here, push a button and stop it? No. And they say, we have to learn. Well, we will, but we'll teach ourselves to do it. So I think that we're being observed, and maybe they have an interest in observing us. Like I said, it could be a genetic thing, it could be curiosity, I don't know, but that's up to them. But I think we are being observed, but we've been observed for 1,000 years. So, yeah, but I'm quite happy to be at this period of time on this planet, to be honest.
Always a good thing. Any comments to that?
Yeah.
Before we move on? Yep.
It's on, good, okay. Well, I think the thing that we have to try and project is these people have probably got access to unlimited power. They don't have to work hardly for a living. So what do most of us do as soon as we've got enough money? What do most people do on the TV programs that win money? What's the first thing they say? They're not going to buy a house. Most of them say they're going to travel. Okay? So if you can travel the universe, come and have a look at those stupid people on planet Earth. Have a look at them. Don't take the best ships, by the way. Take old ones down there. So we've got to look at in those terms. We're in Strugglesville at the moment, but it's totally unnecessary. We just spend everything on war and destruction. But as soon as we turn that around, wow, it'll be paradise here.
And that's only caused by a handful of people on the planet. Most of the people live on the planet like these people here. They're good, genuine people.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it's only a handful of people that are building all this garbage.
Yeah.
You know, they're the ones that got to be fixed.
Yeah.
So let's move on to CE5s. Some of us have done is focus on making contact before we actually go on a skywatch, and sometimes we have actually seen something that was really hard to explain. And Roy was probably the only one here who was at that one in 1992 at Wivenhoe Dam, who's with us still, I think.
Yeah.
And where we saw 3 orange football-shaped objects which were probably about 300 metres away from us, and they were so low over the water that you could see the reflection of them on the water of the dam. So that was very interesting, and what I was mostly interested in was the response of the people who were there, because some were running around saying, "Oh, they're letting us know that they're here. They're letting us know that they're here." Another person went into denial and said, "Oh, I don't know what that was." No. Well, not denial, but I don't know what that was. Another person was questioning, going, "I wonder what that was." One particular fellow was sort of running around very confused, like the whole thing was quite confronting. There was an element of fear with some people, caution with some people. There was a young woman and her father who were there that night, and I think it was Roy and a couple of the other guys, because one of the objects just went out. One just faded off into the distance, and one went down on the other side of the dam, sort of like an inlet, and there was another piece of land there, and it went down. So I think you went that night, wasn't it, Roy? Yeah. You and a couple of the other guys went around to see if they could see anything that had come down. And then they went back the next morning to see if there was anything like a hoax device or any burning on the trees or anything like that. But this young lady wanted to go with them, and the father was saying, "No, you're not going to stay here, you know." So there was an elephant. And what's the elephant in the room? An element of caution, which was necessary, of course. And I just found the whole thing really interesting, fascinating to watch what people were, how they were responding. And so I'm thinking, well, if you go out and you actually, people say, "I want to see a UFO, I want them to come down, and I'd love to see some aliens get out, but would you? Really?" So you'd have the whole group in that particular situation responding in a completely different way. Everyone would respond differently. They would. I had a video camera in the days where you actually had videos in them. Failed. Checked it before, fine. I was just having this conversation before the meeting started. These days you don't get those failures with your smartphones. In the 90s, when it was all happening, lots of stuff was happening, people would go out with their cameras, with all sorts of devices, and that technology would often fail or it would be interfered with. Not today. Now, there could be a couple of reasons for that. It could be that the phenomenon is different today, our technology is different today, or the way the interaction is different, and it could be a host of other things going on too. I don't know. We're talking about aliens, extraterrestrials, advanced technology, who knows what it is. The idea is that you focus on making contact, right? And some people claim that they have by doing that. Now, we happened to, on that particular night, I don't know whether it was that we focused or we just happened to see it was a coincidence that some of us focused on seeing something at that skywatch and something just happened. We don't know what it was that we saw. It didn't look like hoax devices. We couldn't find evidence of that. Certainly didn't look like spaceships, though. I don't know what it was. Was it psychic phenomena? What could it have been? I don't know. But what are your thoughts about the humans manifesting these sorts of things, like with the psychic phenomena?
I can give you an example. 1978, when I was living in Katoomba, and CB radio was just starting to get popular, and well, it was illegal at that time. And I had a CB radio, and I wanted to test it out. So I went up to a little area that was secluded called
Naked Beach.
Narrowneck? No, where was this?
Not Narrowneck, the other one. I'll think of it in a minute.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a secluded little place. Anyway, I had the the Land Cruiser pointing. I turned it around so I knew which way to get home because it's a bit dark and scary out there. And so it was. I was on the CB talking to probably 3 guys in Sydney on the CB at the time, and it was a foggy night, and the fog was just above the street lights at Katoomba that I could see, and to the west, no stars, it was just fog everywhere. Anyway, as I was talking to them, I saw this bright light right out over the Hartley Valley to the west, and I thought, oh, maybe the fog's lifted and the planet or a star is starting to shine through. And I kept watching it, and it was moving towards Katoomba, and I thought, oh, it's light aircraft probably, and I'm still talking to these guys. And as it got to about half a kilometre away, I could see another second object going around the main object in a manner like this, around it like that. So I said to the blokes, hang on man, I'm getting out of the car here, I'll get back later, I've got to go and have a look at this UFO happening here. And right, so I left the mic open, jumped out with the torch, and it was just about to approach into it was probably about 200 metres off the main first power pole light in the Katoomba itself. I flashed the torch 3 times quickly at it, and instantly it shot off in the other direction, just like a twinkle of an eye. It just went heading north, away from me. Holy mackerel, that was a UFO for sure. And I wondered whether that was a reaction to my immediate reaction to my torch flashing, and I was wondering if I had just got out of the car and watched it, it may have come this way, because behind me was a bouldering valley, which is renowned for UFO activity. So, but anyway, it reacted to my flashing light. So that was CU5, was it?
Yeah, there was a human initiated
Yeah.
response in it
Yeah.
at least, yes, which is part
I'll
of
tell you
that.
another one after Tom spoke.
Yes, Colin.
I just want to say it wasn't a very favourable response, and you should.
No, it took off.
You frightened them off, Barry.
That's scary, I know.
Well, we reckon we're frightened of them, but I think they've got a better reason to be frightened of us. So that's probably what happened. They said, oh, there's somebody there, quick, out of here. I don't know, but it doesn't really matter whether you're firefighting or seeing a UFO. I promise you, if you haven't rehearsed it several times so that it becomes an automatic response, I promise you, if you're involved either in a fire or a good UFO sighting, you will get it wrong. Okay? Because people panic, they don't think. So if you have it hardwired by practicing in your head, particularly firefighting, very few people do the right things. So you've got to think about it. I do fire training in our building actually once a year, and I've always been involved in the whole firefighting bit, which I see as akin to the whole UFO bit. So it's about self-programming, knowing what to do in the event. I mean, people have had cameras in their hand, they stand there sunbaking the roof of their mouth and didn't press the trigger.
That's
So what's
true.
wrong with that?
That's true. Nothing's wrong with it.
What's wrong with it?
Nothing. They're just stunned with awe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a story about that.
Yeah.
I was just going to say about our intention being able to trigger these sort of events, the sightings, and to me that indicates that what we're dealing with is a phenomena that is able to sense our thoughts and our intentions. So, they have phenomenal extrasensory perception, telepathy, call it what you will. But this, to me, is very closely related to some of the crop circle phenomena, where people ask for a particular design to be laid down in a crop, and lo and behold, overnight that pattern will appear in the crop. So I think we're talking very much about the same sort of phenomenon, and it is very closely allied to us, and it's able to read our intentions. So if it's extraterrestrial, then they're very highly developed emotionally and intellectually. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to initiate this sort of contact, and it does seem to be something that people are able to do all over the place. Just last year, I was in Peru, and we were on a tour of ancient sites, but we spent a couple of nights at a hotel in the Sacred Valley along the river there, right on the river, and we're in a stunning part of the valley there. There was a right on the river, and there was a big cliff. It was like a natural amphitheatre with this big cliff on the other side of the river. And the whole time that we were there, some of us in the group kind of sensed that there was something that was just on the other side of that cliff, and we couldn't see it. But we went out several times during the evenings, and as we got close to the water, a really strong feeling of a presence made itself known to us. And so we decided that we would see if we could initiate some sort of contact. And we tried for about half an hour or so. I started to get cold, and nothing much was happening. And I went inside. The others hung around for a little bit and then went inside as well without anything much happening. But two of the people in the group were awoken at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and they felt compelled to go outside and have a look, and they didn't go out and have a look in the direction where we'd been sort of concentrating our thoughts earlier in the evening, but they looked out over the Andes Mountains, and there were several very high peaks there with glaciers on them, and they were snow covered. And they saw some orange rectangular objects just hanging over the peaks. And they were probably there for about 10 minutes or so, and then, you know, they just sort of faded away. But they were very impressed by the fact that, you know, they felt that this was a contact that we had initiated with them.
And it's interesting that sense of compulsion you said before to go and do that.
Yes.
Yeah, and that comes up with quite a few of reports we received over the years.
Unfortunately, I was sound asleep tonight.
Yes, Tino.
I think when we talk about the encounters of the fifth kind, we've got to be very clear about initiating contact and getting a response. Very clear. If they're that intelligent, they've got these crafts, it's not hard for them to give you a response worthy of your initial contact. And I say that because even at that night watch at the dam there, Roy, where you were, we have to remember that Brisbane has a population of about 2 million. Okay? Now, standing on that little isolated spot and looking up, you saw a UFO. Put yourself in the UFO, looking down, and you've got a bunch of people next to the lake, 2 families having a barbecue outdoors, a bunch of kids playing with little laser lights, someone looking for their cat on a tree with a light, right? And it could go on and on and on. 2 million people, right? Each one of those people could think that UFO responded to what they were doing. Okay? There's nothing to say that it responded to your attempt. Okay? As one wise man once said, you're most likely to find a $5 note on the ground than see a UFO. It wasn't a wise man, I just made that up. But because we tend to walk looking down. Go to any of these spots, say, do an experiment. Go there once a week for the next 2 months. You will see something probably because you're actually concentrating on the sky. Right? Now, that would happen regardless of you tried to contact or not. It's a phenomenon that happens. Right? They fly around, they come close to bit large bodies. You want to see a UFO, large body of water, military installation, or a power station. They say that'd be about right. Colin, going back, if you're most likely to see a UFO, you go near those areas, you'll most likely see one more, better chances, okay? So again, we have to be very careful and not to think that they're just responding to me, because at the other side of the hill, there's another bloke, right over it, there's someone else, it goes on and on and on and on. So for me, if I flash headlight or lights and they ran away from you, I'm sorry about that. It wasn't your fault. the ideal way to communicate with someone, even going back to primitive times, if you flash your lights 3 times, they would flash it back 3 times. You know, that's thinking the way we think, obviously. But you know, you do something where you know that made sense. You know what I mean? It's okay. I did this, that. Then you do 2 flashes and 1 little one, and they do the same. I could say then you've initiated some kind of contact. See, so I think we need to. The reason I'm on this panel is because I tend to be the devil's advocate. That's why they put me on here. But I think that's a fair comment to make, because I've heard many people going up there on hills and doing different rituals, which is good, because we need to try everything we can to try to initiate contact. But when something does happen, I think, just because of us, well, maybe it was going to happen anyway, whether there was nobody on the hill. So just something to think about.
Well, this is actually a good time to just bring people's attention to this book, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind by Richard Haynes, because in this book he actually has evidential rules that could or should be used to support the assertion that UFOs' response is caused by human behaviour. So I'm just going to pop those up, and he's got 4 there. So he's got, the human must act initially and deliberately by free will rather than out of compulsion or somehow provoked by the UFO alien being. The human's behaviour must precede the UFO's response in time. The UFO's response must follow the human's behaviour with a certain span of time, maybe 1 second to several minutes. And the termination of the human's behaviour to achieve communication should soon be followed by the termination of the UFO's response. What do we think about that? Is that good rules of evidence, or not so good, or?
Probably some of them.
Some of them, yeah.
I can tell you another incident that keep that in mind.
Yes.
When I was living in Glen Innes, right? I was out sky watching one night, and I use a laser a little bit sometimes. Don't do it. It's not. But I broke the door.
You can do it at Glen Innes. There's not many people there.
But to my northwest there was a bright light, and I know it wasn't an aircraft because I've seen numerous of these during the 90s. And I call them UFO probes. It was different, and so I got the laser and 3 times again. Anyway, it faded out. I don't know, it just faded out. And it was about 20 kilometres away, a long way off. And about 6 to 8 seconds later, over my backyard at treetop height, flew a triangle UFO. And it was yellow, faint yellow colour, and it was the same shape as the UFO, triangle UFO they use to draw for the Roswell incident. It was, just if I could do it here, round, the corners were rounded, long side, rounded, come under, and then rounded and back up again. And I could see the patterning underneath. There was a pattern, large pattern. Anyway, it flew just over the corner of my yard, over my back fence in the tree, and I got a real good look at it. And I thought, if that's that thing that I just flashed out, it got there a hell of a quick. Because it's a long way off. And if it wasn't that one that I just lasered, it'd come from somewhere else. Where was it? It was very responsive to me. But the final thing is, was I a threat? Did it, because the Yanks are playing around with laser technology, laser weapons. Did this thing think it was a laser weapon being flashed at it? And if it did I have something aimed on me that was ready to stab me? So, you know, like there's 3 scenarios that come out of that, but whatever it was a triangle UFO, and it was about 3 metres long. It wasn't huge, but it was definitely a UFO, absolutely silent.
So in that case, you can see that the human response is open to interpretation, and the response of the anomalous object is open to interpretation as well. So I guess we're talking about, you know, the behaviour of communication. What is, you know, we interpret communication in different ways. I mean, we're humans, we talk to each other all the time. How many times do we get that wrong, you know? So we misinterpret things all the time. So, you know, like Tino was saying before, we have to be careful that we don't anthropomorphise the behaviours of what we're seeing through our own human perceptual framework. Otherwise we can, you know, we read all sorts of things into that, can't we? Yeah. Yes, Colin? No, we've turned you off.
Turned it off again.
No. It should be on all the time.
On
Trying
battery
to
saver.
avoid feedback.
Okay.
Oh,
Right, well, following on what Tina said before, my wife gets really stroppy with me because I always manage to find a parking spot. And I found lots of money on the ground over the years too. I only keep the small coins. I usually manage to find the owners of the rest of it, unfortunately. So yeah, we have to look down most of the time when we're walking, otherwise we fall down a hole or something. And to sympathise with what you were saying before, this is actually an apology, but it's also an explanation of your situation. So really, we need that sympathetic feeling. If we haven't got a sympathetic feeling, we're not going to know what the hell's going on around us, whether it's birds or animals or enemies or our friends or space people. But there's a limit to that. Now, this wonderful lady wanted to talk to me the other night, late at night, outside her car, right? So I dismissed myself, almost rudely. Why? Because A, I was freezing cold, and B, I had a full bladder. Right? Now, this lady was probably in a really good situation, but she went to sleep. So we are essentially, you know, our animal requirements sometimes overrule the wonderful things that might be happening above our heads.
is that your point? Is that it? Well, I want to bring everyone's attention back to the first point here in Rules of Evidence, that the human must act initially and deliberately by free will rather than out of compulsion, because you can't then say it was a human-initiated contact. It could have been an extraterrestrial or whatever. Initiated contact, you've been prompted to go outside to look at the sky, then you see something, you go, oh my God, what's that? Then you do your little flick with the torch, whatever. But did I really initiate that, or did they? Right, so there's that element to take into consideration as well. I mean, and I was talking to Tina before about some of the things we might discuss. It's like things that you have to take into consideration, like the premeditation of human behaviour. For example, the reason a person signals a UFO in the first place, does that come into play in how a UFO might respond? You know, the individual, the human being in the situation, who they are, why they're there, why they want to make contact. Does that actually affect the type of response that you may get in what you think is a human-initiated contact?
Added another dimension to all this, how complicated we humans are, because we're trying to figure out what they're doing. Now, it's maybe falls under the paranormal thing, but if you ask a soldier when he's in stealth mode walking through the forest very quietly, he'll say at some stage, we're being watched. Okay, it's like a extra sense that we've got probably from primitive days of hunting, etc., etc., etc. I'm sure there's a reason for it, but that phenomena there, that's complicated, and we can't even figure where that comes from. Let alone trying to work out what the aliens are doing. So that adds another dimension to it all. I've got a feeling someone's watching me, and you turn around and there it is. You know, so yeah, it's another layer.
With during the 90s, I did a lot of sky watching, and I saw a lot of strange stuff. And what I discovered, because I'm not going to be able to tell many stories here, but I'll just give you the big picture. I initiated contact and reaction from UFOs quite a number of times, and what I did find out is they seem to remember. Once they realised that I was out there initiating contact, they would then come close to me, like I'm talking about little ones flying out. There was all UFOs are not alien spacecraft. There's other things out there, alien intelligence, biological probes. They're still under the umbrella of UFO. Flying over the rooftop, the house next door, over the backyard, over the clothesline, all over the place. And I set up cameras everywhere to try and film them, even had motorbike film with an infrared night security camera recording on inside, and they knew where to go to avoid those cameras. And I was set up one night to do that, and a dark cameras everywhere. You know, I had a big Nikon camera with a big external flash on, ready just to press a button. Come on, I want to show people what's flying around me, you know. And this huge shadow went right over the top of me, just at rooftop height. It was like, you know, when you walk into somewhere under a bridge, you feel the enclosure. I felt the enclosure of this thing going over. I saw the big black shadow, and I never pressed that button. I was mind blown out. What the hell? There's aliens in that one, you know what I mean? That's what happens. You know, it's crazy. But they remember you, and I can just quickly give you one example. There was a particular UFO that I saw on video numerous times in the daytime. I call it jellyfish UFO. It was an orangey reddy colour with a dangling appendage. Now it moved the tail in this manner when it's in the air, and then it'd change and move it in that. I've got it all on video, and it's not a balloon. Some people say it's a balloon, but I can guarantee you $1 million it's not a balloon. I was at Port Macquarie, and during the daytime, hot behind the shadow of this large pine tree, and going away from me at some distance was one of these jellyfish UFOs, exactly the same. And I looked at it and I said, "G'day mate, it's you again, eh?" You know? Next thing you know, it's come around that way. It's come around this way. They will look at me behind the trees, and it stopped. And I thought, somehow it recognised me, and then somebody on the beach might have seen it, because suddenly it just went straight up outside. Now, that's happened a couple of times. Another time, in daytime, they're all a wave of UFOs going from north to south. And I looked at my watch, yeah, +1, it's about the same time as 8 days ago. I found out they return on 8 days' time, going north. Next 8 days I'll go south. 1 o'clock, same time. I wonder if they're out there. So I grabbed my camera, went out the back door, and here's one of those jellyfish UFOs coming directly towards my back door. I got some terrific video of it. And I was wondering, did that thing come past here and say, "What are that bloke standing there?" We sort of locked in, you know. And someone said to me years ago, I said, you can communicate with them by watching them watching us. That's how you communicate. They become, the awareness comes, and there's a mental conscious contact between them, because they can recognise it. And not only that, I think they can inform others, keep an eye out for this bloke. And they do it probably because of the aura, like a fingerprint, our aura, maybe a fingerprint, or something, I don't know. But somehow they can transfer that knowledge to another UFO to say, keep an eye out for this one. And then you can communicate with it as well, because they know that you're able to communicate by watching it.
Will you bring your videos in one night? Will you bring your videos in one night?
Yeah? It's all on YouTube. If you put my name, Barry Taylor UFO, in Google, you'll see everything that's there.
I just wanted to say that I think that this is almost a chicken and egg situation. And to me, the key to it all is just consciousness. And I believe that we live in a universe that is conscious. And, you know, so we're just a part of something that's much greater, as are these other intelligences. And that's what connects us all. We are all connected at some level.
Quantum consciousness.
Well,
That's
I
what
wouldn't
I
call
call
it
it.
that, but
That's
yeah,
what I call
I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, just Tina's just going to make one quick response, because then we want to take a break. Go on, Tina.
Yeah, Tim, something intrigued me about what you said before. You said that because they're so advanced, they're not necessarily a threat to us. I think that you probably find in our history, the more advanced countries are the ones who create the most havoc. So I don't necessarily believe in that. But when I like to talk about advancement, I'm talking about technological advancement. There's also emotional and everything else. And we've spoken about this many times. Is I think one of the reasons these beings find humans so intriguing is our emotional responses to things, which they can't comprehend. So they may be technologically advanced, but not emotionally or, what's the other word I'm trying to think of? You know, like their inner selves, they're not as advanced. So it's almost like, I don't know, giving a very complicated toy to a child who doesn't know much about it. You know?
I
You mean
think
social
I
consciousness?
think they have no fear. We have fear.
Yeah.
I think they have no fear.
But no fear, but we also have different emotional responses to things like love and sympathy and apathy, when people get empathy and all that. Yeah, sorry. When abductions happen, apathy. When a lot of the cases of the abduction reports, and this is what's been reported, okay, when they're on board a craft and the person rebels against that situation, they're almost taken aback and saying, well, why are you acting like this? We can't understand why we don't understand. It doesn't seem to comprehend with them. Yet technologically, they're way ahead, but that could be like something Barry alluded to earlier. They could have minerals in their grounds, on their planet, that can make them that advanced early on. You see, I mean, they could have discovered some. Look, take uranium for a second, right? If you look at uranium and look at it, you'll say it's a dirty rock, right? Who would have thought that could be the most powerful source of energy on the planet? You don't know until it got discovered, right? Then there could be crystals under their ground that was formed for the way that planet was formed, that could cause an unlimited amount of power, which would change their timeline of development completely compared to ours. So that would send them off on a technologically much more advanced than us, but we're sort of lagging behind. But I think our spirituality and everything is keeping up with our technology, whereas they've shot right off. I'm a painter. I work on scaffolding, right? And the only thing that's kept me alive is fear of falling.
No, but if you had the brains, not the fall, you'd be right.
I haven't quite got to that level yet.
This is what Claire touched on before about consciousness, cosmic consciousness. Barry called it quantum consciousness. So Stephen Greer's experiences began, or the CE5 protocols that he developed, really began for him by his experience, through his experience of having a near-death experience. And this is the interesting thing I found in the early days when I started doing investigations, was that, at least at that stage, I wasn't counting, but about half the people that I spoke to who reported close encounters also reported having a near-death experience. Then over time, and in recent years, I've realised there's a whole lot of things that go on, not just near-death experiences, but spontaneous mediumship abilities start to emerge, and all sorts of different things, precognition, being able to develop the ability to communicate with animals, telepathy, all those sorts of things, because of those close encounters. So he's had this near-death experience. Then after that, he has another experience where he's has his consciousness event, and he goes out into space and he's communicating with these two, what he calls extraterrestrials, and from there he develops the close encounter CE5 protocols. I mean, that's a big story, would you agree? That's a big experience. I don't know how many of you are aware of that, but that's where it all began. And I wonder if he hadn't had that near-death experience to start with, whether the second experience might have actually happened, I don't know, or another experience might have happened, I don't know. But so let's just continue on with those thoughts. Let's start with you, Claire, because you brought it up about what he said. Any comments on what he said and in relation to the consciousness connection and all that?
Personally, I think that Stephen Greer is right on the money, and that these beings are able to come in and out of our reality. I think a lot of them are actually extraterrestrial, but they have evolved the ability to transcend the physical and go into, what is commonly called the astral, and Stephen Greer referred to it as the astral. He often refers to entities in the near astral as well, and that there's a whole bunch of different entities that we're likely to come into contact with, some of whom are extraterrestrial, some of whom are not. But yes, it all seems to be about consciousness, and if you have seen any of the disclosure tapes with some of the people that are ex-military and claim to have worked on retrieved UFOs, they talk about the craft actually being able to interact with your consciousness. It's almost like the craft themselves are telepathic. So there's definitely a strong link there with consciousness. It really is all about consciousness.
Do you think in the situation where craft interact with people telepathically, Are you saying that there is an advanced technology involved, or could the craft themselves be like biological as well as technological? And
As I understand it, the craft themselves are conscious, a form of artificial intelligence, but it is able to communicate telepathically with normal biological entities. So in some instances you might be in contact with the craft, in other instances you might be in contact with the entities within the craft. But you know, it's all about consciousness.
Is that symbiotic?
No, not necessarily symbiotic, but the beings that control the craft do it through, you know, their consciousness. They just think what they want it to do, and it does it.
Yeah, I believe that too. The boomerang formation was known. This went over me 40 foot above me. What time did that get to know? I had a video camera in my hand, and I saw this craft, like this boomerang formation that's had 3 metre objects, this in it, and just above it, like so close. And I thought I could get abducted here, so I started to count. You know, because if I lost like time, my counting would be mixed up. You know what I mean? Anyway, I watched it go over, and I had a video camera in my hand, and I heard this voice in my mind say, "Don't film it, just observe and get all the information you can." And that's all I did. I was able to get a good look at the surface, and I saw a grey sort of blob in the front, in the actual object. It was like the object, put your hand in and not touch anything solid. It was like a bit of clear glass illuminated from the inside. It was like a plasma craft, and very unusual. And on the outside, underneath it had like white lightning, going like that. And I think I got from that seems to be more the alien itself. That object is the alien itself, not a craft with aliens in it. Now that sort of threw me a bit thinking that, but I got such a good look at it, and that's what I got from it by observing it so closely. And that's quite possible, you know. And as I went away, it was so low, it tilted up, and I could see the top, which verified that they weren't lights underneath the boomerang craft itself. It was individual objects, only 3 metres in diameter each.
I was just going to say that if you walk into my unit and there's nobody there, the lights will come on. Pretty simple technology. But supposing I had it connected to a computer, supposing I had all your identification codes, it would only let the people in that I wanted. And that probably is what happens. Probably everyone on this planet and most of this solar system is probably coded in a computer which has got a contact in every UFO. So we've just got to think of technology beyond where we are at the moment. From my little light coming on automatically, that everything being coded and sorted out that way. I don't believe that if you come into my unit that the light goes on because you're psychic. Right? The light comes on because I've got a sensor there. Make of it what you will.
For once, I think I'm going to agree with
quick, write it down.
Mark this down, my friend. No, what I was going to say, in 2015, an experiment was carried out with a person who was severely handicapped, didn't have movements of arms and legs. They put wires and things around on his head, and he was able to operate a small machine, a car, driving around the room. No psychic ability whatsoever, there was just science. So we are on the verge of that now. Imagine if our technology is another 1,000 years advanced. We can fly. It's true, in the reports in Roswell said that the only thing steering the craft with the symbols were 2 indents of hands, like an alien hand. So the pilot would sit there, put his hands there and control, this is the speculation, because remember, we're going to talk about facts and stuff in a minute, but the speculation is that the hand goes there and they can control that craft. Well, we're on the verge of that now. It is nothing, I don't think it's anything like a near-death experience to do that. We're doing it regardless of that. And everything that Stephen Greer said, every single thing cannot be proven, not one shred of it. Unfortunately. Now, I'm not saying that it didn't go through, because I've interviewed personally many people that have gone through near-death experiences, and I believe nearly all of them, right? So I want to make that clear where I stand. However, in situations like this, there's not one shred of evidence. It's a story. That's all it is. It's just a story. And we've had many people come to us about them being the only ones given this information, right? So while we should observe it, study it, note it, we need to remember that there are no facts behind that, right? Then someone who has been able to, say, contact them like that, well, great, come a little bit closer, let me take a good photo. It never happens, does it?
Stephen Degree does have lots of video footage and photos.
I've scanned the net just before coming here of any possible photo that could be shown, and there wasn't one.
Oh no,
Not a
he's
clear
got
one.
lots and lots of them.
Well,
Yes.
can we show some next time, because I'm genuinely curious, because that's the first question I would ask. If anyone can make contact, either consciously or subconsciously, then we've got them exactly where we want them. What are we're always saying, do they exist? Well, here's your opportunity. Just show us something. Don't always be cryptic and say, oh, but you're not at the right frame of mind. You only selected people, or it's not the, all the riddles that go with it. I'm sick of hearing riddles. I'm sick of hearing riddles from the 1940s, 30s. Riddles. We can't do this, we shouldn't do this, we can't do that. Just do it and get it over and done with. And if we have people like Stephen Greer that is in the position, then that's great. We've got people where we want them to be, But we are still here talking about it. I started in 1977. We're still here talking about the same thing, and all these people come and go, and nothing's left behind. So while it could be true, I reckon we should always just take a step back and think about it. I've spoken to 10 people that say that they're the only ones that have been spoken to by aliens. Cheryl, you've probably been in the same situation. I swear that I'm the only one, and I've got photos and I've got this. It's when you hear it all the time, maybe you're desensitised to it, I don't know. But yeah, I've heard it all before,
Now, the interesting thing about that is he's designed these protocols to use so that you can see a UFO, make contact with a UFO, etc. The converse of that is that all the reports that I've taken, and there's been a few thousand over the years, people see these things out of the blue. They're not out there looking for UFOs. It's spontaneous reports, right? Now, there might be a lot of people out there who are making contact or initiating contact, but they're not talking about it to me. So you've got to take that into consideration too. So, but all the people, what I will say though, that I always ask them, have you ever seen anything else unusual before? And that's when they'll say, well, not really. Oh, well, maybe, yeah, when I was a kid, I saw this big bright light outside my window above the tree, And there's always that story in the background, but they don't link what's happened now to that. I do. They don't. So we've always got to ask that question.
Can I expand on that? Just
Yeah.
I want to follow on from that. I've seen a lot of UFOs, I've had a lot of close encounters, and I've never done a C5. You don't need to. If they're around, you'll see them. If they're not around, you won't see them, no matter what you do. You might do a CE5 and think you're seeing things. You talk about the astral, I've studied all that. You don't want to see things that you think might be there. I've heard people that have done CE5s, oh, the ship was right over the top of us and all that sort of stuff, It doesn't happen like that, Some people, you get into the new agey sort of realm. I don't go there because I think I don't want to go into the fantasy side of things. I want to see things that are real life stuff, fair dinkum. And you won't see that if you're going into it expecting to see them in the other realms.
But isn't that what a CE5 is? It's something that you initiate yourself. It's not something you just stumble across.
You won't see them if they're not here.
It's human initiated. Yes.
Right. UFOs, I've studied them for a long time, and I've recorded their frequency as they come in, like in waves. They come in waves and flaps, and they have peaks where there's nothing for a number of years, and then there'll be a great increase. And the reason why is we won't go into now. I have other theories on it. But if there's no UFO activity happening on the planet, in this location where you are, you won't see them, no matter what you do. And if the UFO wave's happening at the time, they're coming around this area, you'll see them day or night. So that's the time to...
remote viewing comes in, that they do that first to see where there's going to be some action.
Not necessarily.
To bring them in, to bring them in as
If you can
well.
make a conscious connection, but I think before you can make a conscious connection, you've got to get out there and see them and make that visual contact so that you can make them aware by flashing something at them or waving at them or doing something to indicate to them that you can see them. That's been my experience, you know.
Can I backtrack
Yeah.
just a little bit and then go forward again?
I don't know, can you?
Let's see.
I know a really lovely, charming lady who was quite ill, and her husband bought her a brand new Mercedes car, and she was really happy with it. But every time he drove it, it kept sounding the horn. And they took it into the Mercedes depot and they said, well, that's because your husband is driving too close to the vehicle in front. Right? So that's the technology. That's just, we've got cars that are sensitive, okay, and we're going to go a step further. And UFOs is the same. So if I got in and I couldn't drive the blinking thing, or I asked it to do something it couldn't do, it would not crash, right? It would contradict me. That's the sort of technology that we're looking at with space people, okay. Now, to go with the ultimate contact, what I thought we would have discussed ages ago, would have to be 38 witnesses in New Guinea. And the ship was there in broad daylight, and it was there for hours, so much so that Father Gill at one stage took them all inside so that they could say their prayers, because it was indeed a missionary station. But what was the clever thing he did? He made sure that all the witnesses, the whole 38, went inside and wrote down what they saw without speaking to one another. And that stands today as it is. And Father Gill, I sat next to him one day for a dinner with our group, and he was the most down-to-earth person you've ever met. That was a physical thing, and it went on for several days. And, you know, we only needed one case as good as a New Guinea case, which of course in those days was technically an Australian case, because New Guinea was part of Australia then. But you know, that was the main one, that's all we need. But what happened in New Guinea was what proved everything to me.
I think for people who aren't aware of that case, we should fill in some gaps, because what happened was Father Gill was there with the mission boys, and there was spaceships in the air. There was one closest to them, and then there are a few other smaller ones, and it seemed to be stationary from memory. And what happened as they were looking at it, that these one by one 4 beings who looked humanoid came out onto the top of the craft, and the mission boys on the beach waved at them, and the beings on the craft waved back. Now, that could be human-initiated contact, but then again, maybe not, because the craft showed up in the first place, so they're looking at them, right? So perhaps it's not human-initiated after all, but it certainly is, the beings there did respond to them.
I mean, if you go to the beach when the tide's out and there's a bit of mud there, you know, sometimes you see those little crabs with a big nipper and they go, hello, hello, they're waving to one another. I mean, it's an initiated response. Is anybody out there? Hello, hello. So waving is a universal sign, really.
I think Father Gill and these people stumbled across this UFO that was over a thing of water and had pipes going into the water. They're obviously collecting water or trying to repair something. I think it's a little bit different.
I don't remember pipes going into the
No
water.
pipes, but they were there for a long time.
Over the water, no, they were over
Yes,
the
they
water.
were emitting.
Okay.
They were emitting
So
light.
I just threw that part in. But anyway, so I think that they sort of stumbled across. I wouldn't call that a CE5 when the UFO's there. Oh, look, there's a UFO. But as a side note to that, when I was secretary of the group, I received a parcel from England, and it was the entire report, original drawings of that Father Gill case that was left to Canon. What's his name? He was
Crutwell.
Canon Crutwell, who took charge of all this material. Went to England, and then they left it to UFO Research Queensland. So every handwritten note by the natives of the time and and by the teachers and the people.
And photographs.
And photographs are all in this group's possession. So,
But if the kids waved and then the aliens responded with a wave, that's a CE5.
Well, the point is that the craft showed up in the first
If that
place.
doesn't matter, it was still initiated contact.
Well, it appears that way.
Well, the way back, the kids
Yeah.
waved first.
But then going back to that, were they prompted? Were the humans prompted?
This is what
That's
I
the
mean.
question, you
This
say.
is
It
the
doesn't
big
matter
question, I
that
think.
it doesn't matter that the craft was already there.
I think
They
quite often-
walked upon it, right? They come out and there it was, but they waved and they
That's-
got a response.
that's a CEO4.
Yeah.
If we went to
That's-
their
yes, I agree,
planet and
that's
knocked
a
on their
CE4.
door,
Wait a minute.
Quite close proximity.
One person, one person at a time. So
Yeah, okay. So
you've
okay, well,
Yeah.
gotta make it see.
Okay, you're
I
next.
think it's a CE4, and I think that this
CE
phenomenon-
4.5.
What it often does is it stages things and it has its own agenda. And, so Barry, you're quite right, phenomena tends to present itself in waves. But I think that is all done with an agenda in mind. Don't quite know exactly what
Why?
that agenda is, but I believe that there is an agenda there. And I don't think that they're just here just monitoring us. There's something else that they're doing, and they're guiding us or something like that, because we can talk about things going right back to the airship flaps in the 1890s, where, there was contact with, entities or who sometimes seemed to be human, sometimes didn't seem to be human,
spoke different languages.
spoke different languages, presented themselves in different ways. And this was experienced on, not just one place, but in several different places around the world. So there was a global phenomenon at work there, but it had an agenda. There was a reason why it was presenting itself to us that way. And I think we have the same sort of situation with the contactees in the 50s. This phenomenon was presenting itself to us in a particular archetypal fashion, and it seems to always just be one step ahead of where our current technological development is. It's almost like it's trying to push us forward. That's a feeling that I've had for some time.
Why do you think it presented through that whole decade of the 90s as alien abduction experiences? You got any thoughts on that?
I think that some of that might actually be our own technology. I don't think aliens would need to do that. And so I'm not necessarily convinced that all of that was extraterrestrial. I think that there's, no doubt a real phenomenon going on. But as to who was behind it, I don't know. But I think there's still some of the abductions and the mutilations and things going on. But yeah, there was a different agenda there, and I don't think it's the same sort of agenda that we're talking about with just trying to push us forward, give us a gentle nudge.
So there's a few different agendas.
I think so.
I sort of hesitate using agenda as a phrase because if you look at the history, like from World War II, the 50s, 70s and 90s, there's three major worldwide waves of activity every 20 years. And I got a feeling that the 20-year cycle is a valid one that needs to be looked into. And we're coming into another cycle approaching now because it finished in 99, the decade of the 90s. So we're looking at 20 years to that now, which brings it to 2019.
2020, oh yeah.
Yeah, 2020 sort of thing. So it'd be interesting now if we were coming into another wave of UFOs into this next decade. That's an observation that I'd like to do, and it'd be a good keen thing to record to see if that's actually the fact. And I think the agenda is, if you want to call it that, is these armada of UFOs and aliens are travelling throughout the solar system or the universe, and coming by Earth every 20 years. I think it's a stream of scientists recording events and growth of the human society on the planet.
Can I just say something as to the 20-year periodicity? That's roughly a generation. And so I think it presents itself in a slightly different format for every generation.
Why is the question.
Why is
Yeah.
the question?
Has any validness is actually the Betty and Barney Hill case, and I think most of the others were doing the same thing, namely monitoring radioactivity, and that it was all downwind from American atomic test sites, and not long after that they stopped the testing on the American soil. They went to put their nasty stuff overseas. And I don't think we can underplay that at all. The only place they should have done a bit more monitoring, of course, was in Australia. We lost a lot of Aboriginals with those atomic tests in Australia.
I think it's important that we don't underestimate that, but it's also important that we don't throw a general blanket over it all too. Because I spoke to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who had alien abduction experiences, and they were very, I spoke to teachers, to owners, corporate people, to policemen, pilots, as well as the general public. Sorry, I don't mean to sound
normal
like
folk.
yes, it's just people like me in the street, So solicitors as well. There are a few of those. So these weren't people who were going to come forward and talk about this easily, put it that way. And they certainly weren't going to confabulate with it. They had some sort of experience, but, I don't know what it was.
The thing that convinced me about the Betty and Barney Hill was the two different responses from the two people. One wanted to pull a gun on him, and the other thing was that he did have evidence in the fact that his shoes were damaged where they dragged him along the ground. It was a physical evidence case, unlike most of the others. I mean, I've had some incredible dreams, and I wouldn't bore you with any of them.
I think that you have... I was just going to remind you, though, there was the Brooklyn Bridge case. There were multiple witnesses to that. The woman was seen floated out of her multi-storey building apartment window up into a ship that was above the building. Yes.
I have actually heard that was staged, but it's a matter of who you believe, I suppose.
Well, where did you hear that though?
I can't remember exactly where, but yes, that a lot of those people, the letters and things that came into Bud Hopkins had been forged, and so
There was a lot of mud thrown at him.
There was a lot, but
Yeah.
also I looked into his stuff pretty closely, and one of the things that I think he was guilty of is actually leading his witnesses on. And he wasn't aware of the fact that he was doing it, but just in the questionnaires and things that he had, he was kind of opening them up to guiding them along. And the other thing I don't think that we can, particularly through the 90s, I don't think we can underestimate is the impact of the X-Files on just the general awareness of UFOs and the abduction experience.
Brought people out to talk about it.
It did actually,
Well, I think it
Intimate.
gave people a template.
Look, I think
Good
Stephen
point.
Greer did a great thing with the Disclosure Project. Regardless of anything that he does now that is questionable, that was great. Because he gave people like me and other UFO researchers and people like you evidence from people who were, ex-military or retired military personnel and civil aviation. They came forward, they told about their stories, they were filmed, and we can point them to those people. You can't, it's really hard to deny evidence from, say, a brigadier general, that has said, yes, I knew about the UFO phenomenon, extraterrestrials are real, blah, 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 blah. So that was just a blessing. I'm glad he did it, but I think since then, he's finding it really hard to find another feather to put in his cap. That's my
But he's
personal...
now got it with the Wilson document that was released.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Stephen Greer is not one of the aliens, he's a human being.
Yeah.
George Adamski is another human being that had a close encounter experience. But towards the end, a lot of people say that his stories got more fanciful as the days went on. Okay? And so, ego, I think, human nature, we shouldn't dismiss those things. I mean, not criticism of them, but they're human. And when you're in the spotlight, look at all these actors and stars of today, how they act. They live in a bubble. right? And it's because that's the way society is. And so once you've reached a level, that next, if you're one of these singers, the next thing is all the way down to the bottom again, unless you can come up with something new. And so I think we have to allow for the human factor to be in this and allow them a bit of ego, this and that. And unfortunately, we're all probably the same. Everybody's probably the same, you know. So I think that we have to be very careful in saying that, yeah, he's doing all this stuff, but yeah, like ego gets to him and he needs another feather in his hat, like you said, or he needs to bring it up a notch if he wants to stay in the limelight. And that's, I think, with a lot of personalities and that.
Yeah, Barry, you wanted to say something before.
Yes.
Sorry. Come on. Yeah.
Right. Now we've been talking about UFOs with aliens in them. Now, I did a talk in Sydney not that long ago, and I called it the Watchers. Throughout my studies, particularly in the 90s, and the death of my father came into this, which alerted me to be aware of certain aspects of UFOs' presence and why they're there. I've discovered, or I am seriously considering, the evidence is there, if you want to look at it, I can show it to you, that some UFOs are taking a particular interest in critically ill and dying humans. Now, that takes it to another level, in my eyes. When there's disaster, when there's war, tsunamis, and earthquakes, it's been known for a number of years, UFOs show up before and after during earthquakes. And natural disasters, plane crashes. On YouTube, I've found probably at least a good half a dozen proof of UFOs in the vicinity coming around to look in the area after an air crash. The humans have been killed, UFOs taking notice. I used to do film work, freelance journalism for Channel 7 in Grafton when I was living there. I got called to a truck crash. We were all there, rescue, the whole lot were there, cleaning the scene up. And to our right, near the railway lines, was an orb, a UFO. It was like the surface of a luster of glazed pearl, and it was there for the sole purpose, this truck driver was killed. Now, was that the soul of the truck driver? The questions go in your mind. What was that? Why was it here? Was it there to recover the soul of the truck driver? What was the reason that was there specifically because there was a death at that point? These are the questions you ask when you see them with your own eyes with witnesses. Now, there's more to the UFO subject than just aliens and spacecraft. They're taking particular notice of the humans around this planet, and particularly when we're in trouble and we need trouble, and there's evidence of it.
I think that
We'll wind up with this.
that goes to the heart of the whole UFO subject, because it's not just one phenomenon. And, so it's a matter of, and this I think is a topic for another panel discussion, exactly what it's that we're dealing with, because we're not just dealing with alien spacecraft.
Yeah,
exactly.
we may have to reframe the debate. And there's a great book about that. Sorry, we've run out of time. We've gone over time, actually. So thank you, everyone, for your attention.